Hello, everyone, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Better the Pond Pondcast, where we talk to amazing people doing incredible things that lead the charge of generosity. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions, where we believe that everyone is an odd duck, but that's what makes them awesome. Today, our guest is Byron Brooks. Three words that best describe Byron: collaboration, leadership, and community. An avid reader, learner, and an honors graduate of the University of Life. Byron is all about building relationships, inspiring those around him, and innovating new ways of doing business. His guidance counselor growing up stated that if he was lucky, that he may make it to the community college. At the time, he didn't realize it, but that counselor fanned a flame that would never be extinguished. That moment in time led Byron to being the home builder and developer that he is today. Byron created builders, designs, and brews to create a collaboration in an industry where only competition existed. We have now coined the term collabortition, and believe it or not, no beer was involved. Byron is consistently creating ripples by helping his industry grow, inspiring and leading those around him to become better, and helping organizations like the YW Hub in Calgary, assisting women in need. Grab a cool pint and listen to what Byron is doing to better the pond. Byron Brooks, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy life to be a guest on my Better the Pond podcast. It is great to have you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, so we met, what, a week ago, I guess, approximately, through Tech Canada. And we've had some conversations since then. And so I'm just really excited to have people like you as a guest to be able to share your stories and what you're doing to better the pond.
For sure. Well, hopefully I can fulfill that requirement and share some of the things I've learned along the way.
Absolutely. So let's take you back. So Byron, what got you from being a gosling to leaving the nest to where you are today? Byron Brooks, what is your backstory? And when I say a gosling, we're taking you all the way back. What is your humble beginnings?
All right. Okay, going all the way back. So I was born in Vancouver, or in Burnaby rather, so the Lower Mainland of British Columbia. And at age 6, my dad felt a calling to pursue ministry. So that led to a world of us moving all over the country with myself and my 4 younger siblings. So we moved a lot of times. Like from I think the number was something like I moved 21 times by the time I was 23. So it was a lot of moving, which was in retrospect it was like it sucked at the time because you're making friends, you're leaving friends, you're going through all this. But I also think it's a neat opportunity, but maybe we'll dig into that later. But so moved all over the place. All through that time, I was going to a series of small, usually Christian schools in the different places that we lived, and I was just not a good student. Not for aptitude, more for attitude at the time. I wasn't a good fit. So I was in high school in Ontario, and my principal invited me to leave a little bit early to go explore what career opportunities were out there in the world. And so I took his I took his generous offer to depart high school and went to pursue a carpentry career. I had a bunch of uncles who were carpenters.
So I'm gonna take you back here. You've got me like absolutely intrigued. So I want us to go back to, so your dad had a calling to ministry. What did your dad do prior to that?
He was a flower salesman. So he worked in a greenhouse, and then he did flower sales. I have a Dutch background, and that's one thing that Dutch people do is grow flowers and sell flowers, and that's the industry that he fell into. And so I remember going to work with him. We would drive around to like Safeways, and he would deliver flowers. It was cool because the greenhouses smell really good.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always fun to be around that. But then, yeah, so that was his career. He shifted from that directly into going to school.
And so do you remember, did he ever talk about like what shifted him from one to the next? That's a pretty big, all of a sudden a big career change, right? And now your life is now, all over the place.
Yeah, we have talked about it. It's not to say it's contentious, but it's something we viewed differently. So he felt like a divine calling. There was also ministry in his family, so it wasn't like an untrodden path. His father was also a pastor, but he was resistant to pursuing ministry until that time. So I can't really. There is no clear explanation beyond that. That's how he describes it. He felt a calling to pursue ministry.
Okay. And how many siblings do you have?
I have 4 younger siblings, so I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters.
Ah, and you're the big brother.
That's me.
And was it your responsibility to take care of them all?
No, not really. No, we look back. So there's 2 years between all of us. But we look back, and my mom did a whole bunch of work to keep everything stitched together. Like like moving. Like even now, I'm like, so I've lived in our house with my wife and my kids for 8 years now, and I'm 40, and that's actually the longest I've lived in one place in my whole life, which is like it's reassuring, but it also like makes me itchy sometimes, but which is fine. Anyway, moving is like a ton of work. Never mind moving with 5 kids and moving across the country and new schools and everything. So when we look back, our parents did a great job of. We felt loved the whole time. We didn't realize how impoverished we were until you like look back at pictures and you're like, hey, like that's a hand me down. That's a hand me down. That's a like so our parents did a great job. My mom especially did a great job of keeping all that stitched together. And with my siblings, it's great because of all that moving, we became our own sort of cohort and our internal friends. So even now I have great relationships with all my siblings, even though they're spread out all over the world.
Oh, they are. So where is everybody now?
Okay, let's see. My Katrina is in Langley with her husband and kids. Lucas still works in a greenhouse. Not still works in a greenhouse, works in the greenhouse and is in Surrey, BC. And then my mom is in Surrey as well. My sister Janelle is in Australia. My brother Gregory is here in Calgary. And then my dad is in Edmonton.
Oh, so you are a little splashed. One decided to, let me guess. It was post high school. I want to go to Australia for, to go check out the world, and then never came back.
I forget how Janelle ended up there. Janelle is a zoologist or a biologist or some combination of both. So very passionate about animals and conservation. And so that led her to meet her partner, who is Australian. They're funny. He's like a legit crocodile hunter. He's had some of the coolest jobs. So he's like the government of Australia employed him for a while to move crocodiles from saltwater to freshwater or something. So like literally, and they go out at night and look for snakes, and so we get all kinds of weird pictures from them, which is interesting. He also had a job at the Vancouver airport. They still use it's like a low tech solution, but they use birds of prey, so eagles and falcons and owls, to deter seagulls and geese. So sorry, goslings, from entering the airspace around there. So that was his job when he did it in Vancouver, was like he was a falconer working at the airport, which was super cool. But anyway, so she's over there, and they work for I think they're doing some work right now related to, you remember the wildfires that they had in Australia?
Mm-hmm.
They're doing some work related to like animal surveys in that. So again, they have an interesting life, which is neat to see in our family WhatsApp chat.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I got to admit. So,
Mm-hmm.
so then I'm just going to bring you up to speed. Then I'd say about in high school. So I want to just dabble a little bit into when you said, about in school and not really fitting in, and your teacher having a conversation with you, and you deciding to sort of move out of school. So what was that like for you in the education system? And we've talked about this a little bit before, and I'd just like to hear your experience.
It was frustrating mostly, is I guess the best way to put it. And teenagers are tricky too, right? But basically what it amounted to is like I like to learn, I like to read. I always did well on tests and in school, but I did very poorly on homework or any any kind of follow up. So that led to a lot of like they were constantly talking about how I was missing my potential. And so, but what they viewed as my potential was different from what I viewed, and what I liked doing was I worked on a series of farms all throughout high school, and so I liked just working. Like there was something, there was a joy in that, and just getting shit done, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where, and at the time, I think and hope that that's changed a little bit, but at the time, the path, especially from a small private school, the path was university. That's where you're trying to go, and then a bunch of steps below that was like community college, and then you weren't even talking about trades or nursing or anything technical. So it was when the guidance counselor said something like, well, if you're lucky, you might make it into community college. And I'm looking around and thinking, okay, all the parents in this school are farmers and carpenters and builders and caretakers and or entrepreneurs. Like, why aren't we talking about any of these things? Why? Like, I'm not going to go to university. You guys have sucked the life out of me for however many years now. There's no way I'm going to go spend 30 or 40 grand to just get beat up more. So then I went straight into trades from there, but very intentionally. Trades is an interesting one, I think, as a product of that situation, certainly 20 years ago or more, where pushing people along an academic path led to a lack of really skilled and qualified people in the trades, because it was viewed as somewhat less than. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's totally wrong. I think there's a lot of really interesting career paths. So it frustrated me that they couldn't even look at that. And then I went off. But so then I was intentional about, if I was going to be a carpenter, then I want to be the best carpenter that I could be. So I was intentional about getting started on my apprenticeship and ensuring that the people I surrounded myself with were people I wanted to emulate and people that could teach me things. And just shifting my attitude on site. I remember one thing that really helped me. I worked for a number of years in commercial construction in Vancouver, so building big high rises, complete opposite of this woodworking bench that's behind me. So it's like the roughest, dirtiest work, which was enjoyable when I was in my 20s, because again, I just liked working. But one thing that really helped me was I would look at everybody on the job site and say, okay, this guy can do 3 things better than I can. And until I've learned those 3 things, I have no right to criticize anything that they do. And then once I've learned those 3 things, the chances are if there was 3, there's probably another 3. So I put myself in a cycle of continuously trying to learn. And it could be the way a laborer scraped the edge of a piece of plywood before he stacked it. Like, there's all these little tips and tricks, but you only are open to that if you kind of shift your mind to accepting that everybody can teach you something. So that was helpful for me through my whole path.
I have to ask you a question here, and I think it's really important. And it's really important, I think, of any younger listener. It's something that your guidance counselor said: if you're lucky, you might make it to community college.
Yeah.
What was the message, number one, in behind that to you, and how did you interpret that? Because I just think it's fascinating how, as a student, you said, if you're lucky, you will make it too, right? It's almost like that's so, to me, what I hear is that it's questioning your intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And what's the message?
Yeah, I don't know what the irony there. So this was in Sarnia, Ontario. That guidance counselor was also my dad's guidance counselor when he lived in Hamilton while he was growing up. So that some of his guidance counselor's thoughts may have been a bit outdated by that time. But yeah, no, it was definitely. It made me feel like I said, made me feel less than, which to me turned into fuel for like a little bit of an FU. I'm going to find success my own way. I think your way is stupid. But yeah, it was not. So I think it's a problem with a lot of that education is we're trying to apply a general system to a whole bunch of individuals, and it just doesn't work. And so this was him applying the general system that he saw and he believed in. But I didn't fit within that kind of I didn't fit within that spectrum. I didn't automatically do what I was told, and I was a little too questioning, which certainly didn't fit well in a Christian school as well. So.
Well, and being a nonconformist in a very highly conformist environment probably didn't suit you well.
Mm-hmm.
But interesting enough, right? And I'm just bringing this up for a point because I think that having kids understand themselves and in the education system is highly important. We talked about this, but it's like if you go into a trade, that means that you aren't intelligent. That's sort of that's the correlation between the 2 points. And it's just so ridiculous when you actually sit back and think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, that you are, so you like to work with your hands, which has nothing, you like to build and construct and right, which has nothing to do with intelligence at all. You can be a
Yeah.
very intelligent builder, but
Mm-hmm.
but it's that natural drive. And I look at my son now who's 17 and he wants to go into like agricultural mechanics and he loves working on the farm and he's out there with a
Yeah.
chainsaw cutting wood and he's just in his glory. He's absolutely, he's just like lit up. And you put him in the classroom and more so actually through this time where he's been at home on Zoom, right? And it's just sucking the life out of him, right? And so with that, here's a kid he really doesn't like school, and he's not doing terribly well in it because he's not interested. He'd rather be out building something, right? He's all like you, and so that but he's very smart, and so it's interesting that whole trade piece, and probably it's changing now a little bit, but back then it was like you're less than because you want to go work with your hands.
Yeah.
And not being an intellectual. Like it boggles my mind.
Yeah, it's very odd. And then but that that they're so separated too, that you can, and I think you can be both, like the gentleman farmer model, where it's like, and you have to be intelligent because you're balancing all these things. Like that's where, so in my career, and where it circles back is now I actively pursue some of the things they were trying to teach me in high school because it applies to my work in terms of like one of the biggest parts of my job now as a manager of a company is like how do I set my employees up for success? How do I manage the emotions of my clients? How do I understand this? Like I remember walking out of my accounting 12 course on the first day because it was just spreadsheets and numbers and stacks of textbooks. And I just stood up and I was like, sorry, Mrs. O, this isn't going to work for both of us. I'm going to go across the hall and see if I can join the grade 13 English course. And she was just like, you can't really do that, but I guess. So then, but so now, ironically, now I like have to take accounting courses, but I like it because it applies to setting the people on my team up for success through our work. So but I don't know. So, but I think the attitudes have shifted. So I think there would be a world where your son can find a viable path. And I know there are a lot of organizations. There's one here in Calgary called TEPF. I don't know what it stands for, but if you start looking at the technical colleges, the SATs, and we have SAT here, you probably have an equivalent one there.
Yeah.
There are lots of programs to get people started on the right path. And I empathize with a lot of the certainly teenagers right now that I can't imagine online school and the extra restrictions that COVID puts on them. It would be a stressful time in what should be a pretty carefree time of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So shifting gears here a little bit. So when was it then you actually left the nest? When did you leave home and start venturing out forth on your own?
Oh yeah, we're okay. Let's go back again. So in high school, I was always working. I worked, like I said, on farms, and then in the summers I went out. So if we were living in Ontario, in the summers I went out to BC to work with my uncles in their construction companies. And then right before the end of high school there, so I got uninvolved with high school, and then right the day that high school ended, one of my buddies graduated, and we jumped in a car and drove to BC, and then that's when I entered the construction world full time and started pursuing my apprenticeship. So then went from there. So I worked in and around Vancouver area for 10 years while I did that apprenticeship. Then I was just looking around, and I had kind of capped out where I was in that world, in the like big commercial construction. So I was a foreman. I was leading a team. It was fun, but I looked around and there were not a lot of models that I wanted to emulate in that world, and I wanted to explore more of the craft side of our business, and I wanted to have a connection with the people that were using the things that I was building. So that's something that's missing in commercial construction. You're just sort of there hammering away building these things. And what I really liked, I'd done a couple of renovation projects, and that was interesting to get to see, to engage with the clients and to really understand what the intentions were behind these projects that we were doing and how people were going to interact with them later. So I liked that. And then I also liked the finishing carpentry side. So in 2010 or so, I took a year off and I went to woodworking school on the Sunshine Coast of BC. So I took a year and did that, which was amazing. And like I look back now, and it was such a neat opportunity to just spend a year living in a cabin in the rainforest, biking to work, biking to school every day, where I had got to work making handmade tools and handmade everything. So the complete opposite of the sort of commodity-driven commercial construction. And then from there, that stemmed. Well, then I was broke, so I went back to work in commercial construction, which led me here to Calgary, running a crew, building an LRT station, and then that led to working as a finishing carpenter for a large custom home builder, doing a couple interesting projects here. And then in 2013, we had a flood here in Calgary, which meant that the house we had just finished completing, I had gone out on my own to start my own company in the interim, but then the flood happened, and the clients of that large house we were working on invited myself and my partner back to do the flood restoration, and there were a few other projects in the same area. And then that grew from there 8 years ago or so to where we are now, where we have 14 people on our team, actually 16. We have two different companies, one that does more commercial work and one that does custom residences. So it's led to here now, which is exciting. It's always just, it's neat to see where it goes, and it's neat to see my team kind of growing around me and growing in their own roles, and seeing stuff happen now. Where it's like, that's we're working on that now. That's cool. I didn't know that was happening. That's some of my most exciting moments now. So, I don't know if that gets us almost to today.
That almost gets us today, exactly. And I know you have another business. We'll tie that in, but I just want to, if you think back of your journey of, I mean, obviously it was a lot had to do with construction and whatnot. So you did commercial construction, you did some building, did woodworking, you did restoration, did renovations, right? Now you became an entrepreneur, you did your own thing. If you were to look at all those things, what was your favorite job? What was the job that you did that you were just in your wheelhouse?
Ooh, good question. Well, I think that's constantly shifting, but it's dumb, but I have fond memories of baling hay, because when I worked on the farms in Ontario, it's like you just work, like, and so that was satisfying. But I think more so, like, pertinent to our current day situation, we've built a few beautiful homes, and there's one in particular. I worked on a wood screen detail, like an architectural wood screen, with myself and my brother Gregory was working with me as an apprentice at the time. And so we spent like 6 or 7 months building this wood screen, and it's just beautiful. So I think that's sort of one of the proudest achievements, certainly of my carpentry career. And then lately, it's not one specific job, but I got a really nice email from a designer. I took him for a tour through one of our active projects, and I got a really nice email from him, just mentioning how we're having our unique perspective is changing the way the construction industry operates in Southern Alberta. And so that was really gratifying, and that he was able to recognize that, not just through the stuff I'm spewing, but also through the actions of my team and the way people were working together on site. So I think that was certainly of the last year, that was satisfying, and piggybacks onto a client came through one of our sites, and the job was it was a very difficult job. But she came through. And she told us after, she said, I love coming to the house because I go there and it's like everybody wants to be there. And I thought, oh, cool that we've created this environment. And that's not just our team, that's also the trades and also the suppliers and everybody that reads through for the clients. Like that says something to them about what's going into their project and the house they're going to live in. If they had a good experience going through the construction process and recognize that it's not just them, but other people as well, I think that's pretty darn cool.
That, I mean, that what a great, well, number one, great from a business standpoint, a great culture, but what a great experience for the customer, right? I mean, it's like everyone is caring about what we're doing, about what they're doing, rather than just going through the motions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference.
For sure.
Oh, wow. Good on you. That's fun. I mean, I think that's what, companies strive to accomplish, and you've managed to do that. And I will say, just kind of knowing you in the short time that I have, I mean, I think you're just somebody who just, from your standpoint, just building relationships really matters, right? And doing what you do really matters. And that, when you set the example for the people around you, right, you set the stage. So good on you.
Thanks.
So I don't know. I just witnessed these things in people, and it's I don't know how, but it just sort of, it shines through, and it's, to me, it's just very clear. And I'm just glad there's people out there, and it just goes back to my whole thing about Better the Pond. Like, it's just, putting that positive attitude out there and putting that leadership out there, and inspiring people to do the same, right? Just makes the world a better place, whether it's in construction or if it's in farming or if it's in retail, right? It's but it is basically kind of shining a light on it, and putting that forward, and setting the stage for other people to follow.
Yeah, no, and that's been, it's been fun to see that play out for myself as well. And like I said, some of the proudest moments lately are things that people on my team do, or comments we get from outside our organization, which is just sort of a reassurance that some of the weird and quirky paths we head down are actually the right ones, not just for us, but possibly for other people as well.
Right. So what's your other, so you have Brookwright, which is your construction company, when you're doing custom homes, and you're doing some really high-end work. It's pretty amazing. If anybody goes to your website to see the work that you're doing, is pretty jaw-dropping, if you ask me. And then what's your other company?
Our other company is called Brighton Projects. So we recognize, so part of why we've been successful in construction is we just chose to take a little bit of a different approach to the way we engage with architects and designers. Like, traditionally, our industry views them as an impediment to progress, whereas we've chosen to shift it and see them as an integral part of the team that's required to create amazing projects. So we've been successful with that in Brookwright, and then we wanted to serve those design partners in commercial and retail and multifamily spaces as well, because often architecture and design firms work in both spaces. And so we just got tired of saying no, like, we don't do that kind of project. So then we started a separate company, which my partner Aaron manages. And that's been interesting to explore as well. They were doing a nutrition consulting business and a coffee shop right now, which are fun projects. And so, like I was saying before, like, we still have that connection to the end user. But the interesting thing about a commercial project, certainly a hospitality or a restaurant, is now you can go back. You can go back there and see it the way it was intended to be used, and that's pretty gratifying and pretty exciting from our end.
And you also have to let the listeners know, because you got my attention earlier when you said your office in Brookwright. Where is that located?
Yeah, and that's a good. The only thing I wanted to talk about was Builders and Brews. So we also we have a group called Builders and Brews, but my office is located in Annex Ale Project. So I'm in a craft brewery. So the wall behind me, not that wall, but that wall over there, is floor to ceiling pallets of craft beer. So it's a dangerous but exciting environment to work in. Also makes it a no-brainer when we get back to in-person meetings. It's like, well, where do you want to meet? Your office or mine? Now it's pretty easy. Now it's all coming this way, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. Like, a dangerous environment. I mean, talk about this is like mastery of self-control.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I can go out that door, or
Yep.
I can stay on
Just
this
walk
side.
around. Yeah. No. Yeah. And our office manager. So we do have a discount on beer downstairs, but our office manager really put the brakes on. But I was like, why don't we just like start a tab? Can I do that? Like, is there something about that where it's like, I'll just go to hey, but just put it on my tab. She's like, and she cursed and just no, Byron, you may not start a tab at the brewery in the office. That's just a terrible idea.
Yeah.
So it's probably probably wise
That,
that I listened to her counsel there.
that was very wise counsel.
Mhm.
so so shifting gears, and I do want to dig into when we're talking about what are you doing to better the pond. I
Mhm.
want to dig into that piece of what you're doing to make the world a better place, which is the basis of why we're here today. But um, so I believe that we're all odd ducks. I believe that we're all misfits. And can you tell me something about you, Byron, that's made you a misfit, that's made you different? That can be positive or negative. What have you done differently to stand out?
What have I done differently to stand out? Um, I think one of the main things that certainly lately um, is just a commitment to transparency and idea sharing that I think doesn't exist in construction. So both with when we deal with our clients and our architect and design partners, we're full open book. We'll show them everything, but beyond that, we'll also share some of that information on Instagram. So like we'll tell our competitors what we charge and how we do it, and because I think um, I don't think that information is as precious as it once was, partly because we all have the internet and both us or our competitors or our clients can find all the information anyway if they're willing to look hard enough. Well, let's just shortcut that and let's just share that with everybody in an effort to make our industry better and to position ourselves as a trusted resource before we've even met potential clients or potential design partners. So I think that's one. I'm sure it's so funny. I'm probably not the person to ask. You'd ask my wife, and she would probably have different answers, but which would be interesting. Maybe I should ask her that. But yeah, no, that's what jumps to mind for me immediately.
Okay, so let me dig a little bit into that, because you've got me intrigued. I'm very curious. When you look at having that transparency and the honesty and just hey, here it is, right? Were you the driver behind that when it came to putting that
Mhm.
out there
Yeah.
for the company?
Yep.
So what's the driver in behind that? What is it about you? Because this, again, not many industries will do that. Not many industries will go and say, hey, we're going to lay everything on the table. We're going to work with a client. We're going to lay everything on the table and have it be that transparent. What is it about you that drove you to do that?
I feel like it's kind of an intangible. Like I can't really point to a moment where I was like, this is the right decision. But it's more that's just what felt better. Like through different iterations, we tried it all sorts of different ways of holding this information back and reframing this in this way to present it. And it's just what felt better. I think it's actually an advantage as well, because if you recognize that certainly on a custom home project, the clients are a critical part of that team and they're often the least informed, so they don't have a lot of information, right? Because there's a heavy information imbalance because we know what's going on because that's our industry,
Hmm.
whereas we're asking the clients to pay for it all. But where a big part of my job now is client education and emotional management, but what really helps with that is we can engage them as part of the team that it takes to put a project together. That puts them in a much more powerful and respected position, which I think is helpful, and that transparency kind of sets you off on that path. So yeah, there was no real clear moment or no book I read or anything. It was just that it feels better to operate that way, and so that's how we've chosen to carry ourselves.
But I think that goes back to also saying what you said earlier about the environment, with the environment that you created, and the end user, the end customer, of having that experience, that you care about what happens. You care about their home. You care about them as a person, which is much
Mhm.
bigger than just building a home.
Yeah, sorry, I'm laughing because we joke about Brian, my partner, wanted to call he wanted to call our company Complete Compassionate Services. So we joke about that. We call ourselves CCS internally sometimes because we care. We really do. But we could joke about it, but we do. No, it's a yeah, and I think it like I say, it just feels better. So I can't put a metric to it except that that's the case, and it feels better to our team as well.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound all fluffy with it, but to me, it's just that's authenticity. That's just like we practice what we preach. We do what we say. It's getting back to the basics, right? And I think that really matters in business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's the thing that computers are never going to be able to do. Computers aren't going to be able to empathize. They're not going to be able to be authentic to who they are. They're going to replace technology is going to replace a lot of the other humdrum things that we do, but it's never going to be able to touch that. So I think that's where the power is, not just in our business, but in a lot of businesses moving forward.
Absolutely. So next question is, now, Byron, when did somebody do something for you that left an impact on your life, that left a mark?
When did somebody do something for me that left an impact on my life? This is positive or negative as well, because it
Positive or negative?
because the first thing that jumps to mind is exactly that conversation with that guidance counselor. I can remember being so frustrated and so like, F you, F all this. I'm gonna succeed in my own way. So I think that maybe because we just talked about it, but that's definitely that's the one that jumps to mind right now.
Then you're not the first person to actually say that on my podcast. But I find it fascinating with people, when they've been up against something like that, if somebody's made a comment saying you can't, right? There's some people who've taken that and said, well, I guess I can't, and have bought into the idea, then actually blame the guidance counselor because of what they said to me. So that's option, that's door number one. Door number two was screw you.
Yeah.
Right. And it became the best blessing, right? Because it launched you into your world, right? And all you needed for somebody just to, to light that fire, and you took it into a positive rather than a negative.
Yeah, no, and that's something that rage. It's rage success. You're just like, and it's that competitive drive as well that helps with that. And maybe that's why maybe they balance each other out. Maybe that commitment to transparency now is a counter reaction to that. It's a way of me balancing my sort of innate competitive nature with the ability to, or with the requirement rather, to engage people in these solutions rather than just to hammer things through. So yeah, I don't know.
So that guidance counselor could have done you a huge favor, right? Which just took years to play out, but there it is. Never saw it at the time though.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Vandermolen.
There you go. So, yes, exactly. Well, you thank him, right? It's like, at the time, you sure didn't want to thank him, but looking back, it's like, wow, like you did me a huge favor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a blessing in disguise, right? I call it the gift in the ugly box, is what I call it. Right. So now, what are you doing presently right now, Byron, to better the pond? And more importantly for me is, why are you doing it? So let's hear all about, builders, designers, and brews, and the work that you're doing there.
For sure. Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about that. So, like we talked about before, so my office now, our company's office is in Annex Ales, and like 5 or 6 years ago, we were here as a project. We were helping put the tap room together. And so in Alberta here, the craft beer industry changed a lot over the last 7 years or so. There used to be a barrier to entry of something like 500,000 liters of beer that you had to brew, which was a barrier to entry for many small brewers, right? But a few people got together and lobbied the government to get the rules changed, so then we could have microbreweries, and that's led to like a blossoming of a craft beer scene here, which is really interesting. But why that's relevant is when we were working in the tap room, we got to see firsthand how that played out. So we'd be here working, and then some guys from a brewery down the road would come in and we'd say, "What are you guys doing here?" And they'd say, "Oh, we're here to help Annex set up this equipment, because we messed it up when we set up our brewery and it was expensive and a pain in the butt, and we don't want them to do that. So we're just here to help them." I thought, okay, cool. And then a few days later, a different set of brewers show up with a pallet with a bunch of bags on them. Like, hey, what are you guys doing here with these bags? Like, let's get them out of the way. We're trying to work here. But they're like, oh, we're just dropping off some hops because we had extra and we know that Andrew needs it for his beer. I thought, okay, cool. Like that's neat. And then, but I thought, okay, doesn't like, I don't have other builders dropping 2x4s off on my job sites, especially not now. But that's neat. And then so I thought, okay, there's just nice guys. They're all friends. Who knows? And then later, more brewers came with kegs this time. So again, what are you guys doing here? And they said, oh, we're just dropping these off because when they open the tap room, they want to have cold beer on tap, and so they're going to sell some of our beer. And I thought, oh, weird. Like, why this industry is odd. And so then I pulled the brewers aside later and said, guys, what's going on? Like, are you just friends with all these people, or like, what's the deal? And they explained to me that they recognize that being a small industry, by building each other up locally, helping to educate consumers, working together on marketing, working together on even staffing, like people jump back and forth from breweries here on like the purchasing power and all these different things. By working together locally to educate consumers, they can get a bigger piece of kind of the beverage pie from the InBevs and Molsons and Heinekens and the really big multinational companies. And it's also just creates a better environment. But what that does for the craft beer industry is it puts them in a position where you can go to Costco and you can buy like 50 pack of Kokanee and it's $1.20 something a can. So for that 355 to 341 milliliters of beer, but so you'll pay $1.20 a can for that commodity side, but you won't hesitate to go downstairs here and pay $6 for the same volume of beer. So like a 400 or 500% markup, but it's because they represent that craft side of the industry where you're getting a better product, a better experience, a connection to the people that made it. And I think that's really cool. So when I saw that and had that experience and talked to them, I thought, well, why don't we do this in design and construction? Like, why are we all holding our information and these are my trades and those are your trades and this is my idea, and that's like, so why is there a way we can start to emulate some of that? So I reached out to some of my colleagues and competitors, ostensibly on paper, to say, hey guys, this is the experience I had. How can we do this? And so from there, we started Builders and Brews, and it's been really interesting to pursue. And so part of our mandate now and the way we operate now is every couple months we do an online event. Right now, in the past we did, and we will again very soon, do an in-person event at a local brewery where we'll bring in a speaker, like just a speaker for a kind of a quick hit, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, with actionable takeaways that people can apply to their businesses the next day. And then we just have an opportunity for networking and just having a beer with your colleagues in a way that doesn't exist in the industry right now, because we have like the construction association and the plumbers union and the wine and cheese nights with designers when they're looking at new faucets or something. But there's all these like siloed things. There's not many places where all those groups can come together and connect meaningfully. And so it's been neat to see that play out, and to be involved in that and be able to take some of the blessings that I've experienced in construction and share some of those ideas and things with the industry in an effort to make our local industry better ultimately.
Mm-hmm. I call it collabortition.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't heard that before, but that totally makes sense.
Collaboration with your competition, right?
Yep.
Collabortition. And
yeah.
And I think that, it comes back to even my analogy, right? Is that we're better together, right? We're working towards something as a betterment, right? Of course we're in competition. I mean, who in business doesn't want to succeed?
Yeah.
But when we can help each other grow and whatever else, we grow the thing together and everybody wins. Instead of the win-lose, right? It's like lately, I don't know, that's been a topic, right? It's like no one wins a war.
Mm-hmm.
No one wins a war.
Yeah.
Ever, right? So when you're trying to go head to head, right? Well, no one wins because there has to be a win-lose.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're trying to create is a win-win, right?
Yeah.
And create a better. So I think it's it's interesting in the craft beer industry was, and it's happened here actually, because I know the CEO of a local brewery here, Mark Heise, he owns Rebellion, and it's the same philosophy, right? It's like, hey, how can I, hey, your forklift broke down. Here, use
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah. Oh,
You
I
know,
know. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
we got this really cool thing that we did. Hey, why don't you try it?
Yeah.
Right, and
And
try to grow the industry.
and again, just because it's back to that, like it just feels better. Like it feels better to operate that way. And I
Mm-hmm.
think and hope that's where a lot of things are moving.
And I found it fascinating that you're doing that in the construction industry, because I've never heard that before.
Yeah, our industry sucks in a lot of ways, and one of them is openness to change. And so, if we can play some small part in helping move construction forward, so one of the most kind of interesting moments out of our Builders and Brews work, we one of our first events we did it on the pre-construction process, and um, this is where construction has one of its biggest flaws is in terms of like a competitive bidding situation. So the way the industry is set up and the way people have been educated by HGTV and their uncle who built a deck once and knows a thing about construction is that you got to get three prices. You got to get three prices for everything, or those guys are going to screw you. That's just not the right way to build a project. And the more custom it gets, the less applicable that method is. So what's better is to put a team together early, say, here's our designer, here's our builder, here's our plan, here's our budget, here's our timeline. Let's put all those things together and let's get a bunch of smart people all working on that problem of how do we deliver that project for that timeline and that budget. And so I had been speaking with a architect, and he had a really interesting way to approach it, and he had some visuals, and I said, oh man, can you like, do you mind if I put you in front of a group and explain this to everybody? Because I think our industry needs to know that this approach is out there, where you're not estimating for free, you're developing a team, and just even giving people some of the language to put that together and explain that to clients. So we did that event at a brewery here called Prairie Dog. This was in 2019, but then the feedback coming out of that, a couple of my what did you call them?
Collaboration.
Collaborators, collabortition.
Collaboration.
A couple of my colleagues that own other construction companies got in touch with me later and said, "Hey, since we did that event, I haven't estimated a project for free, and my enjoyment of my work has gone up dramatically." And that was from two different sources, and I was like, "Holy smokes! That okay? We've hit something here," and that felt right. And so that was cool, and that kind of gave us the impetus to sort of keep it going and keep things moving. And then just last week, actually, yeah, last week we had an event in collaboration with BEAC, which is Building Equality in Architecture Calgary, and we had three construction heavy hitters who happened to be women presenting on the construction and community building for the YW Hub. Here in Calgary. So we had a representative from the architect lead, we had a representative from the developer, and one from the builder. And so we got to hear the story of how that building came together and how their unique career paths were formed, and that was really cool. And then we were able to also, based on the ticket sales and a sponsor for that event, we were able to write a nice check for the YW Hub as well, which also felt really good.
So can you tell me a little bit about that? I was actually going to ask you about that, the YW Hub. So this is, something that you're collaborating with other industries and business, and of course involving beer. But what do you like? What's the YW Hub all about, and how is that helping the community?
So the YW Hub is like, so it's like the YMCA, but this is the YWCA, so Young Women's something something. I'm not sure what the letters stand for, but what they provide is a range of things. They provide emergency services to women and families that find themselves in a troubling situation. So they have support there. They operate a little bit like a shelter, but they also have a daycare, and they have education programs, and just do a whole range of things to help people that need a hand up, right? And so I think that's a great effort to support, especially now in COVID and with the economy not humming along like maybe it once was. There are a lot of people that are struggling and need a place to turn. So the YW Hub provides that resource in Calgary here.
Mhm. I think it's fantastic. I mean, here you are, a home builder, and in turn, you're helping, women that are, in trouble, or, they can't make ends meet, or whatever the case is, a place for them to go. So,
Mhm.
something that completely out of a different industry, you're helping the community and the people within it. And to me, it's those little things, and that's actually one of the reasons I wanted you on here, Byron, is that, because to show people what you're doing to better the pond, right, and to inspire other people to do the same. So thank you for all you do for making that happen.
Yeah, no problem. And it's often like it's not, and I don't want it to be too like grandiose. This was a small event, but often it's the sharing of ideas and
Mhm.
connections to the right people at the right time. So the analogy I was, or the example I had before, where those brewers dropped off hops.
Mhm.
So another event that we did was with Habitat for Humanity. That was last December. So we did that event. But what they did is, okay, what does Habitat for Humanity actually do? Like people don't really understand that they have a program where their clients have to put in a certain amount of work to help build what's going to become their future home.
Mhm.
And they told us a bit more about how we as a construction industry, like what do they need? They don't need carpenters necessarily, but they do need team leads to volunteer. People with construction experience are incredibly valuable there because you'll have like maybe you have a corporate group, or maybe you have those homeowners themselves. You have people who have no construction experience who are supposed to try and build this house. So they're like, so if any, so we could, so as team leads in construction, you can go help on a Habitat for Humanity project. But they also have, and people kind of know about it, but just sort of tangentially, they have their Habitat for Humanity restore, where if you're ripping out an old kitchen, don't just throw it in the dumpster, like
Mhm.
stack it up on the driveway, and Habitat for Humanity will come pick it up and put it in the restore. Then they can either put it into their project, or they can sell that material to fund their efforts. So it's like a half step removed, but there is a way that we as a construction industry can share those materials and resources with people who are less fortunate. And that to me felt really good. And so similarly to that pre-construction event, after the Habitat for Humanity one, um, the Habitat people called me and said, "Hey, we've had a bunch of people reach out to start helping, and we've had material from our projects that has gone to the restore now." So it was nice to be able to expose the right group of people to the right ideas and connections that helped foster that collaboration and community building.
Yeah, and I think, well, you said earlier, but not trying to make it grandiose, but and neither was I, but I look at it as, you're throwing the pebble in the pond, right?
Mhm.
Like, so you're throwing the one pebble in, and the ripples just keep going out. It's no different than when you had a speaker come in, and all of a sudden they say, well, hey, I've never done an estimate for free since then, right? Like, you just threw the pebble in, and the ripples went out, and it's, so one small thing can make such big changes down the way. Sometimes you
Mhm.
just don't see it at the time. And it's
Yeah,
really kind of no different than what your guidance counselor did for you.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Sort of.
So, looking back and looking forward, and the lessons that you've learned along the way. So, Byron, what is? Paint me a picture of your golden pond. What does your future look like?
Oh, that's great. Okay, there's a few different things here. So one is builders and brews. So we've had interest from other people in Edmonton and people in Toronto and people in Vancouver who have either come to a builders and brews event, or I've connected with them, and they've said we got to do this here. So one of my dreams for builders and brews certainly is to be able to turn that into a larger organization, where part of my world is flying to Toronto to help host a builders and brews event. That would be amazing, especially because then I can make bigger ripples, just expand the pond a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, so that would be one. And then in my construction companies, I would love to get back to a place where I can do my dream scenario in our construction companies, and I think I can get there, is to have my team working effectively, building 3 or 4 beautiful projects at a time, and I'm in the background in a fully equipped woodworking shop. And then with every new home we hand over, I deliver a custom made piece of furniture, because while I love doing that work, it really is really, really difficult to feed a family just doing custom made furniture. So if I can somehow find a back door to building custom furniture while empowering my team with the tools they need to build these homes, that would feel like a huge win to me. So
I love it.
that's what I'm shooting for. And maybe owning my own brewery. That's also the other side. That's the other sidebar.
Well, do you really want to own your own brewery? Well, I mean, you just have to walk through the door.
Yeah, true. No, yeah, good point.
I do love the idea though. I think that's a fascinating idea of when you build a custom home for someone of making a custom piece of furniture for that home or for that owner.
Hmm.
I think that's exceptional.
It
Like,
would
who does
again,
that?
it would just, and it would feel good. Like it's a
Yeah.
unique skill set that I have, and it's something that I want to do with my life. And I think it would be meaningful both for me, but also for the clients and designers that we work with.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's great, and it's just so funny because as I listen to you today, I just see this link of you just building relationships with people. That's what I'm seeing, and it's heartfelt and it's honest and it's authentic,
Mhm.
and it just actually shines through, right? And that's your way of creating your ripples. So here's the last question of the day, Byron.
Sorry, I
Right?
was nodding. I just found myself nodding on a podcast. I
Yeah,
shouldn't
don't do that.
never nod on a podcast.
And if
Yes,
that's the case,
yes,
I
Warren.
never
Yeah.
thought of myself as boring. Um, so here we go. If you were standing on the top of a mountain and the whole world was intently listening to you, what would you say?
Oh, oh man. So I'll just go with the first thing that jumps to mind. I'd tell people to read books. I'd tell people to go read more. I love reading, and it's been a continuous vein through my whole life. Even when I was scrapping with my guidance counselor and the teachers and principal at school, I was always reading and always learning. So I think I would tell people to slow down and read.
Hmm. Sage advice, like the wise goose on the pond. So, all right, Byron, I really want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank you for your stories and all the ripples that you're creating in the world and the relationships that you're building and inspiring others to do the same. So, where do people go to find you, to connect with you, Byron? Now, that's whether in the construction business, if you want to have a beer, or if they want to help out with builders and brews and those things.
Yeah. Oh man. So the best place is probably brookwright.ca. That's brookwright with a W. That if you email that, it'll get through to me. Instagram is the social media platform that we're most active on. So we're brookwright_construction on there, and also builders and brews. So I'd encourage people to look those up. And a message there will also get through to me, and I'll be able to have a conversation there. But yeah, no, I would welcome that. If anything resonates with anybody, or if they just want to have, if you're in Calgary and you want to have a beer, by all means reach out. Let's see how we can connect and help each other out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, there you have it, folks. We had a great time today. This is Warren Barry flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond, because we're better together. Thank you so much, Byron.
Thank you, Warren.